Morbid Facts, Part 2. This Florida man developed star-shaped cataracts after he was zapped by 14,000 volts of electricity. While he got some of his vision back after surgery, he's still legally blind as a result of the mishap. In 2007, a man from Florida woke up in the middle of the night with a severe headache. After he drove to the hospital, doctors found a bullet in his head. Turned out his wife attempted to murder him in his sleep by shooting him in the head. In 2012, a woman from New York donated her kidney to save the life of her boss. But her boss then fired her when she took too long to recover from the operation. In 2001, a woman from Texas hit a homeless man with her car and his body became lodged in her windshield. She drove home with him still stuck in her car and repeatedly apologized to the man when he was in her garage. But she never called for help, and the man died 2 days later still stuck in the woman's windshield. She ended up receiving 50 years in prison for the bizarre murder. Morbid Facts, Part 7. A teen boy injected himself with mercury at least 3 times while trying to turn his bones into metal like Wolverine. He was also intentionally bitten by venomous spiders multiple times so that he could turn into Spider-Man. He spent extended time in the hospital as none of his efforts were successful. During the French Revolution, people on death row often fought to be the first one executed by the guillotine. This was because the blade would dull after multiple uses and eventually wouldn't cut the head clean off on the first attempt. Masabumi Hosono was the only Japanese passenger on the Titanic and managed to survive the ship's sinking. But upon returning home to Japan, he was seen as a coward and publicly condemned for not going down with the ship. After his mother died in 2013, Arizona man Jim Stauffer donated her body for scientific research. He later found out that her corpse was sold to the US military for $6,000 and then blown up at a bomb testing site. This is a leaked screenshot from CNN's supposed doomsday tape. The footage is meant to be broadcasted by the last surviving employee in case all of humanity is about to die. It features a marching band playing the song Nearer My God to Thee, the same song that onboard musicians played as the Titanic sank.
How our legal system.
Well, I'm gonna have to stay down.
That was the moment a father snapped in court after learning how Larry Nassar had abused all 3 of his daughters. During a 2018 sentencing hearing in Charlotte, Randall Margraves suddenly lunged at Nassar after being denied his request to have 5 minutes alone with him. His daughters had each been abused under the guise of treatment, part of a disturbing pattern that spanned years and targeted hundreds of young female athletes. For decades, Nassar had been a trusted doctor for USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University, treating many elite athletes, including Olympians. But behind that reputation, he was sexually abusing girls during supposed medical procedures, often without gloves, and sometimes even with parents in the room, convincing them it was necessary. Complaints dated back to the 1990s, but institutions repeatedly failed to act. It wasn't until 2016, when multiple women came forward publicly, that the full scale of the disgusting abuse was finally exposed. More than 250 victims eventually gave statements describing years of manipulation and sexual assault. In 2018, Nassar was sentenced to up to 175 years in prison. The case exposed massive institutional failures, led to high-level resignations, and resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements for victims. In July of 2023, while incarcerated at a penitentiary in Florida, Nassar was stabbed multiple times by another inmate during an altercation, suffering serious injuries including a collapsed lung, but survived after being hospitalized. The disgusting little rat will remain in prison for the rest of his life. Morbid Facts, Part 936. In 2018, a man from Rhode Island returned from his vacation in Costa Rica with severe migraines and facial paralysis, initially thought to be a brain tumor. But instead, doctors discovered a rare black mold growing inside his brain, forming dangerous abscesses. The fungus, found in soil, is known for attacking the brain and carries a mortality rate of around 70%, with early cases historically being almost always fatal. Since 1911, only about 120 cases have ever been recorded worldwide. The infection likely entered his body during the trip and slowly spread to his brain, causing several strokes and neurological damage. Because of its location deep in the brain, the mold couldn't be fully removed, but after extensive treatment, the man miraculously managed to survive. In April of 2011, French aristocrat Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès killed his wife, 4 children, and the family's 2 dogs inside their home in Nantes using a .22 caliber rifle while they slept. Investigators later found the victims wrapped in plastic and buried beneath the terrace, alongside religious items and letters suggesting he had carefully planned the murders before withdrawing money, abandoning his car in southern France, and vanishing without a confirmed trace. Despite an international manhunt, sightings, and several false leads over the years, he's never been located, leaving the case one of France's most disturbing unsolved family murder mysteries, with authorities still uncertain whether he escaped abroad, lives under a false identity, or died shortly after disappearing. Morbid Facts, Part 937. In Miami Gardens, Florida in 2011, O'Neal Ron Morris was arrested after performing unlicensed cosmetic injections using dangerous homemade mixtures that included substances like cement, oil, and sealants. Victims sought cheap body enhancements, but instead suffered severe complications, infections, and permanent disfigurement. In 2012, one of Morris's clients died after being injected, escalating the case to homicide. Morris was eventually sentenced to 10 years in prison for manslaughter and for practicing medicine without a license. On July 1, 2016, in Louisville, Kentucky, 21-year-old Joshua Woodruff was struck by a black sedan while waiting for an Uber after celebrating New Year's. Instead of stopping, the driver kept going, dragging Woodruff's body beneath the car for nearly 6 miles along the highway. By the time he was finally dislodged onto the roadway, he'd suffered catastrophic, unrecognizable injuries from being ground against the pavement at high speeds. The driver never came forward, and despite years of investigation, no one has been held accountable. Woodruff's grieving family has continued searching for answers, left with the haunting reality that someone drove for miles knowing exactly what they were doing and chose to keep going. Morbid Facts, Part 949. In 2024 in Los Angeles, California, 23-year-old YouTuber Tumad, whose real name was Medea Siddiq, was found dead inside his home after a welfare check was requested when he'd gone silent for several days. Authorities discovered his body in a state of decomposition, indicating he had likely been dead for some time before anyone realized. The death was later linked to a suspected drug overdose, with reports of substances found at the scene. In the months leading up to his death, Tumad had posted increasingly erratic and concerning content online, including references to drug use and disturbing behavior. Despite having millions of followers and a massive online presence, he died alone unnoticed until the smell coming from his residence prompted concern. Donald Miller disappeared in Ohio in 1986 to escape debt and alcoholism, and was declared legally dead in 1994 so his ex-wife could collect Social Security benefits for their children. Years later, he resurfaced and appeared in court in 2013 asking to be declared alive again. The judge ruled that under Ohio law, a death declaration cannot be reversed after 3 years, meaning that despite standing in the courtroom alive, Miller was legally considered dead. As a result, he was left unable to get a driver's license, Social Security number, or legally work, effectively existing outside the system with no clear way to reverse his status. Morbid Facts, Part 956. As a teenager, Euphoria star Angus Cloud survived a life-threatening head injury after falling into a construction site, fracturing his skull and requiring emergency brain surgery, leaving a long scar along his head. He was later discovered on the street with no prior acting experience and cast in Euphoria, where he became known for playing a drug dealer. But in July of 2023 in Oakland, the 25-year-old died from an accidental overdose, including fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and benzodiazepines, a lethal combination that can quickly lead to respiratory failure. His death came just days after burying his father, who died from cancer, and he had returned to the home where his father passed, reportedly struggling with grief and mental health in the days leading up to his death. Eerily, he previously said he wanted to portray Mac Miller in a biopic, who died in 2018 from a similar fentanyl-related overdose. In 2018 in California, 23-year-old Angela Hernandez drove off a cliff along Highway 1, plunging about 200 feet into the ocean below. The impact left her with a brain hemorrhage, broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and broken collarbones. After regaining consciousness inside the submerged vehicle, she managed to escape before it sank, swim to shore, and climb onto a narrow rocky ledge beneath the cliff. With no supplies and severely injured, she survived for 7 days by drinking fresh water that dripped down from moss and vegetation on the rock face. She was eventually spotted by passing hikers along the roadway, who alerted authorities, leading to her rescue and evacuation to a hospital.
If you're enjoying, be sure to subscribe as we
2
will
days
start
before
a
his
new
death,
longer
he
form
said
content
this.
named
Every
Morbid
day that I have
Stories.
on
This
earth
will
is
be
a gift
posted
and a
on
blessing, and
only
I'm very
this
grateful
channel
for that.
and none other.
because, frankly, people are disappearing. Scientists are going missing. Now they're saying they're going to investigate this. The president himself is saying they're going to look into this and see if anything's going on. It's a little bit scary.
That was David Wilcock, a paranormal author and Ancient Aliens contributor, known for claims about UFOs, hidden technology, and government cover-ups. In the video, he referenced a series of recent deaths and disappearances tied to researchers and scientists in space, energy, and defense fields that he and many others believed were connected. Just 2 days later, on April 20th, 2026, in Colorado, deputies responded to a crisis call. Authorities said Wilcock was found outside with a weapon and died shortly after police arrived. His death was officially ruled a suicide. In 2019, aboard the Disney Dream in the Atlantic Ocean, a 5-year-old girl climbed onto a porthole railing for a photo and fell nearly 50 feet into the ocean below. Her father jumped in after her seconds later, hitting the water hard before swimming to her and keeping her above the surface as the ship drifted on. With no flotation device and surrounded by open sea, they remained in the water until crew launched a rescue boat to pull them out. Both miraculously survived as the girl was treated for hypothermia, while her father suffered serious injuries including a fractured spine from the impact with the water. Morbid Sports Facts, Part 2. In 1989, the Buffalo Sabres goalie had his neck sliced by another player's skate, severing his carotid artery. It resulted in so much blood loss that 11 fans fainted, 2 had heart attacks, and 3 players puked on the ice. His life was saved by the team medic, who luckily served in the Vietnam War as a combat medic. In 1962, a Cuban boxer named Benny Perret made fun of his opponent Emil Griffith for being a homosexual. Griffith ended up beating Perret so badly that he fell into a coma and died 10 days after the fight. In 1973, the U.S. Army developed an anti-tank grenade by hollowing out a Nerf football and filling it with explosives. However, the ball never made it to the battlefield since the explosives gave it an unpredictable flight. In 1977, the University of Evansville men's basketball team was involved in a tragic plane crash. The crash killed every player on the team except for one man who didn't make the trip due to an injury. 2 weeks later, that only remaining player was killed by a drunk driver. Here are some morbid facts about Albert Einstein. Around 1902, Einstein had an illegitimate child named Lee Searle with his future wife Mileva. Very little is known about the girl other than that she was mentally disabled and died from infection at a very young age. In all likelihood, Albert never met the girl in person. Her existence was only discovered in 1987 through a collection of letters. Soon afterwards, the relationship was falling apart, so Einstein made Mileva sign a contract to help work things out. It had multiple conditions such as that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order, that I will receive my 3 meals regularly in my room, and that my bedroom and study are kept neat at all times. After those two eventually got divorced, Einstein married the daughter of his mother's sister, making them first cousins. Despite being very smart, Albert's second son Edward was diagnosed with schizophrenia and described by his father as an insoluble problem. He was sent to a mental asylum at the age of 20 and remained there for the next 35 years before dying of a stroke in 1965. Morbid Facts, Part 361. In 2011, Chicago man Robert Lyons bludgeoned his mother with a champagne bottle before relentlessly stabbing her and pouring chemicals all over her body. He did this all because she refused to buy him skybox tickets for an upcoming Avril Lavigne concert. Robert was 39 years old at the time. This was the last photo taken of resistance leader Chiang Bin-Hua just moments before she was executed by bayonet. She led a Chinese guerrilla movement against the Japanese during the invasion of her country before she was captured in 1938. While in captivity, the 24-year-old was brutally tortured and gang raped by several guards, but died with a defiant smile on her face. In 2022, 70-year-old Maya Murma was collecting water in India when an elephant suddenly trampled her. She was quickly rushed to the hospital, but ended up dying from her catastrophic injuries. When family members gathered for her funeral, the same elephant appeared, threw Murmu's body into the air, and trampled it again. Morbid Facts, Part 359. In 1955, 24-year-old actor James Dean died in a car crash while driving his Porsche 550 Spyder, which he nicknamed Little Bastard. After the accident, the car was towed to a garage in Los Angeles. and while it was being repaired, it fell off its jack and crushed a mechanic's legs. The engine and transmission were later sold to two professional racers, both of whom later crashed their vehicles during the same race and were seriously injured. The car's tires were also sold, and the new owner was eventually killed in yet another car crash. Over time, the stories of deaths and injuries associated with the car led to rumors of a curse. Some believed that the car was haunted and that anyone who came into contact with it would suffer misfortune. But in 1960, the car disappeared while being transported from Miami to Los Angeles. The car has never been found, and its whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. Morbid Facts, Part 347. In 1996, mountain climber Beck Weathers and his team attempted to scale Mount Everest. But after coming down with a bad case of snow blindness, Weathers got stuck in a severe blizzard with a wind chill of -100 degrees and soon fell into a hypothermic coma. He miraculously survived, but had to have his nose and both hands amputated as a result of severe frostbite. Nicknamed Mr. Titanic, this was the last photo taken of French diver and Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet. He saw the Titanic 37 different times before dying on his 38th trip on board OceanGate's Titan submersible. In 1986, a young Indian flight attendant named Nirja Banat was on a plane that was hijacked. The terrorists were targeting Americans, so she hid the passports of all 44 Americans on board. Instead of saving herself, she helped the other passengers escape and died while shielding 3 children from a hail of gunfire. One of those children is now a captain for a major airline and says that Banat was his #1 inspiration. Dumbest Ways to Die, Part 1. In 1993, a Canadian lawyer named Gary Hoy claimed to a group of students that the windows in his building were unbreakable. To prove this, he threw himself at the window at full force. While the glass didn't break, the frame popped out and Gary fell 24 stories to his death. The man who once had the longest beard in the world died after he accidentally stepped on it and broke his neck. In 2010, an MI6 agent was found naked and dead inside of a padlocked bag in his London home. Police concluded that he accidentally locked himself in the bag and died as a result. In Houston, Texas, a 19-year-old man named Rashad died while attempting to play Russian roulette. Apparently, he didn't know how the game worked since he tried using a semi-automatic pistol instead of a revolver. Badasses of History, Part 12. After having his leg amputated due to cancer, 21-year-old Terry Fox started running across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Every day he ran a full marathon for 143 straight days until his cancer worsened, forcing him to stop. He ran a total of 3,338 miles, and his fundraiser has helped raise more than $600 million to date. Ludmila Pavlichenko, the most successful female sniper in history, struggled to pull the trigger on her first few kills. But that all changed when she saw a German soldier shoot a young Russian boy. She said, "He was such a nice, happy boy. After that, nothing could stop me." She went on to record 309 confirmed kills against the Nazis. During World War II, American Private Edward Ahrens was found clutching a sword surrounded by 13 dead Japanese soldiers. Clinging on to life, his last words were, "I guess they didn't know I was a Marine." Morbidly Wholesome Facts, Part 57. A sheep-herding dog named Casper faced off against 11 threatening coyotes and killed 8 of them on the farm. He then went missing for 2 days, most likely to track the remaining coyotes and finish the job. His vet said he's incredibly lucky to be alive, while his owner agreed to let him retire. During World War II, a German pilot spotted an American pilot's crippled plane in the sky. He noticed that the gunner was dead, the crew was injured, and that they didn't pose any threat. So instead of destroying the plane, he led it to safety and spared the men's lives. 40 years later, the 2 pilots reunited and became fishing buddies. After TV star Jack Benny died in 1974, his widow Mary received a red rose in the mail. After several days of receiving a new rose each day, she finally called to find out who was sending them. The florist told her that Jack had arranged for a new rose to be sent to her every day until she died. Morbid Facts, Part 793. The murder of 6-year-old beauty queen JonBenet Ramsey is one of the most baffling cases in American history, and the details are far darker than most people realize. On Christmas night in 1996, her parents found a bizarre 3-page ransom note demanding $118,000, the exact amount of her father's recent bonus, written on paper from inside their own home. Hours later, JonBenét's father reportedly discovered her body in the basement, strangled with a homemade garrote made from one of her mother's paintbrushes, her skull fractured, and her wrists loosely tied as if staged. There are also signs of possible sexual trauma, suggesting she may have been assaulted before or after death. Meanwhile, the autopsy revealed partially digested pineapple in her stomach, even though her parents claimed she went straight to bed that night. A bowl of pineapple with her brother Burke's fingerprints was later found on the kitchen table. There were no footprints in the snow outside, suggesting the killer never entered or left the house. Police later learned the basement window was already broken and the family never fixed it. The most popular theory today is that JonBenet was accidentally killed by her older brother Burke during a sudden outburst, possibly over the pineapple, and that their parents staged the ransom note and crime scene to protect him. This theory, while never proven, explains many of the inconsistencies in the evidence. But despite massive media attention, DNA tests, false confessions, and countless theories involving intruders, cover-ups, and family secrets, no one has ever been charged. Nearly 30 years later, the case still remains unsolved. Morbid Facts, Part 788. In 2017, Tennessee Dr. Paul Locus was celebrating Halloween dressed as the Joker when he got an emergency call that one of his patients was in labor. Still wearing full makeup, green hair, and a purple suit, he rushed straight to the hospital to deliver the baby. The mother later said she couldn't stop laughing as her baby entered the world in the hands of a Batman villain. Here's a photo of a Turkish soldier whose face was severely disfigured by artillery fire during the Battle of Gallipoli in World War I. He likely didn't survive long enough for any meaningful reconstruction to be attempted. In the 1830s, Spanish-born criminal Diogo Alves terrorized Lisbon by robbing travelers on the city's aqueducts and throwing dozens to their deaths below, earning him the nickname the Aqueduct Murderer. After later killing a wealthy family during a botched robbery, he was caught and hanged in 1841. Scientists then severed his head and preserved it in formaldehyde for study, where it still sits on display at the University of Lisbon, eerily intact nearly 2 centuries later. Her selfish decision caused her toddler son to die in one of the most excruciating ways imaginable. In May of 2011, 2-year-old Kenton Brown died a slow, agonizing death inside his mother's car in Louisville, Kentucky. His mother, Molly Schaus, had stopped to buy drugs and passed out for nearly 12 hours, leaving her baby trapped in his car seat as the temperature inside the vehicle climbed to more than 130 degrees Fahrenheit. When she finally woke up, Kenton's tiny body was covered in sweat and blisters, his lips blue, and the buckle that held him in place had seared into his skin. Detectives said he had clawed away at his car seat straps and pulled his own hair out in a distressed panic before succumbing to heat and dehydration. Schaus was later found to be under the influence of Xanax and marijuana, and initially lied to police about what had happened, claiming she'd only been gone for a few minutes. A jury convicted her of wanton murder, calling it one of the most disturbing cases they'd ever seen. She was sentenced to 35 years in prison, as the courtroom wept while prosecutors described Kenton's final moments, awake, terrified, and slowly dying alone inside the car his mother never returned to.